Hello, everybody. This is Jake Leonchka, and you're tuned in to Public Huddle. Today, I'd like to speak to you about the Modesto City School District and what seems to be another controversial issue that's plaguing them, and that is the impending approval of another sex education curriculum, this time for fifth graders. If you would recall, last year I was also involved in the fight against a new sex education curriculum called Teen Talk. And at that time, I was already predicting, they're not going to stop there. But as Teen Talk is, it will only get worse. And I said that we should brace ourselves for programs that would even reach down to the younger ages. And we're right there now. But before we even talk about the puberty talk curriculum per se, I think what will help us understand the bigger picture about sex education in this state and in this country, we should understand a little bit about history. So today I'd like to bring you down memory lane and revisit the origins of sex education as we know it now in America. And it really goes way, way back in the 1930s. So brace up. We shall begin. So we're going to be asking some very basic questions about sex education and its origins. And I'm going to show you the timeline. I'm going to show you the different people involved, or perhaps the most significant person involved in this sex education revolution. I'm going to show you who financed it and what possible interests there might be for people to simply get interested and get involved in this kind of endeavor. So I'd like to point out a few very important aspects of this current fight that is happening with the Modesto City Schools. Okay, so brief history. Last year, 2024, I got a call from concerned parents and educators telling me that there's going to be this new curriculum introduced by the Modesto City Schools on sex education. It was called Teen Talk. And what happened there was the parents were a bit concerned that, number one, the school district did not quite announce to as widely an audience as possible, meaning here the parents, about the introduction of this new curriculum. It was made available only at a certain window of time, and it's not normally, but it was made available during the day when hardly any parent could actually visit the place where the curriculum was available. And so, therefore, very few of the parents were really able to scrutinize the contents of that curriculum. When voting came, you would see exactly where the proponents of the Teen Talk curriculum were very well prepared to defend their position in favor of the curriculum, whereas on the other side of the fence, you had a few parents and advocates who were, advocating against Teen Talk. So it was a very lopsided kind of battle. And in the end, the proponents of Teen Talk won their vote from the board. And so now Teen Talk is an accepted curriculum for sex education. And now here we go again with the situation of a new curriculum they're introducing to the fifth graders, and this is the puberty talk. And it seems like the same modus operandi is playing out, and that is that parents are not given enough time to really be able to evaluate what is in this curriculum. And if that is the case, then you could not expect parents to really be able to register their objections in a detailed, or should you say objective manner, because there's just simply not enough time to be able to take a good look at everything that there is to take a good look on as far as this curriculum is concerned. Then on top of that, the curriculum both of Teen Talk and Puberty Talk also come in two forms. One is the written curriculum, and on the other hand, the digital side of things, meaning it incorporates videos, right, that are to be shown to students. Now, but the only thing that parents and everybody else could see are the text part of the curriculum. Nobody has been able to see the videos, not even the board members. So you really wonder what the basis of approval there is if you or anybody who is supposed to decide on this matter is unable to have a comprehensive look into what's really inside this curriculum, right? Except for the committee itself that's pushing for it. Okay, so how do you expect parents to really come up with a rational, objective vote? It's tough. And I also want to put in question the board members who approve this, because not even they are able to actually see the entire curriculum from beginning to end and all the components that are part of that. So how can you even decide, you board members, how can you objectively and rationally decide on something for which you do not possess the complete information of, right? It's just ludicrous that you're doing this and then you're affecting the fate of your entire school children population and their parents and their families, and influencing their development in a very, very negative way and disadvantageous way. Okay, so we're going to tackle the details of the curriculum in another video, so as not to belabor this one, because I happen to be able to obtain for my own use the actual curriculum that they're about to approve, and even the curriculum of Teen Talk, which was not available to many parents then. Well, now I have it in my own hands, and I'm able to discuss it with more objectivity, looking exactly at the material that the board members should have had before they cast their votes. But that's not the topic of this podcast. Today, I'd like to precisely talk to you about the history of things, so that we put the whole sex education program in this country in its proper context. Let's start with a man who started the whole sexual revolution in this country. And the man responsible for this is a certain Dr. Alfred Kinsey. Dr. Alfred Kinsey was a professor of zoology at the Indiana University. He served as coordinator of new marriage courses that were established at Indiana University. During his involvement in 3 courses, he began to question students about their sex lives. Sex lives, and offer advice in matters of sex and relationships. He simultaneously began compiling detailed documentation of several of these sex histories for his own personal interest. Okay. Alfred Kinsey was a zoologist, and based on many other accounts of his professional career, he wasn't quite the best zoology professor there was. And he was plagued by the idea that his career wasn't progressing too well, so he needed to do something different. He needed to do something revolutionary, shocking, and something that was going to put his name and face on the map somehow, somewhere, when it comes to research and intellectual discourse. And he thought, well, that maybe studying sexuality, sexual behavior, was it for him. And so he ventured into doing what he called research. Okay. and researching on sexual behaviors. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with the details of research that he did. Okay, I was a researcher myself, so I am very cognizant about procedures and frameworks and all of that. Suffice it to say that this Kinsey, Alfred Kinsey, used as a sample, or the universe of his research were of two populations. First, criminals. Male criminals incarcerated in their jails. Okay? I mean, I guess talk about a captured audience. Well, with pun intended, his audience was really a captured audience, right? They couldn't go anywhere, and they were just right there in their cells. That was an easy sample to do a study, right? Criminals, particularly criminals accused of sex offenses. Okay, so sex offenders. And then on the other side, the other sample that he used for his sexual studies were prostitutes. Okay, women you pay for prostitution. Okay, those were the samples. And what did he inquire about from these people? What did he make them do? Well, based on his methodologies, which are described in some text, he made them do every sort of perverse sexual actions you could imagine. And I wouldn't want to mention any of them in this podcast because I don't find them appropriate to be tackled and talked about here. Okay? But suffice it to say that Dr. Kinsey conducted his so-called sexual researches in the most doubtful of scientific rigor and devoid of credibility. I just put it that way, right? Whatever he learned or apparently learned from criminals and prostitutes, he generalized these things and applied them to ordinary human beings, and said that in conclusion, whatever those criminals and prostitutes were doing with their sex lives was actually normal behavior for the rest of us. And he went on to publish his research findings in books that came out in the 1940s. Now, but that's just the skinny, okay? I wouldn't even delve into the details of other things he did for his research and the publications later on. But here's one interesting thing I'd like you to tie together. Who funded the researches of Alfred Kinsey? Alfred Kinsey's research, and this is from the publication of Ethics and Liberty Commission. Kinsey officially began sexual research in 1941 with the help of funds from, drumroll please, the Rockefeller Foundation and the assistance of the National Research Council. In 1947, Kinsey founded the Institute for Sex Research at Indiana University, now simply known as the Kinsey Institute. Okay. The Rockefeller Foundation funded Kinsey's research. Now, why is that interesting? Because the Rockefeller Foundation, that was 1941. Okay. In 1942, the Rockefeller Foundation began its support for Planned Parenthood, which was formed from the merger of the Birth Control Federation of America and the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. 1941, Kinsey. 1942, Planned Parenthood. We will do the connection later. We'll establish a connection later. But even prior to that, In 1939, Rockefeller, who was in the business of oil, right? He was in the oil business. In 1939, John D. Rockefeller ventured into the pharmaceutical industry. And in so doing, in order to start up his pharmaceutical industry, the Rockefeller Empire formed a drug trust, as he called it, an alliance with a German chemical company, A.G. Farben, which later on became Bayer. It emerged as a separate corporation within the alliance, including well-known companies such as General Mills, Kellogg, Nestle, Bristol-Myers, Squibb, Procter & Gamble, Roche, and Hex. Companies that still exist today in the pharmaceutical industry, right? Now, but what is I.G. Farben, the one that the Rockefeller bought into? Okay, I.G. Farben was during the Hitler's Third Reich. Okay, was the company that performed the experiments on the Jews who were incarcerated at Auschwitz. Okay? So the German company that experimented on the incarcerated Jews at Auschwitz, it was I.G. Farben. So why is that significant? Well, because that's the kind of company that Rockefeller bought. Now, what were the experiments being done by I.G. Farben? If you know any of your history of the Jews in Auschwitz, so that same German company, with the help of the Rockefeller Foundation, was the one pushing for Margaret Sanger's eugenics, okay? And the Jews became part of the eugenics experiment in Auschwitz. Now, the same Rockefeller Foundation, through Planned Parenthood, funded contraceptive development, not only in the United States, but overseas, and supported research networks for clinical investigators and research centers around the world. So, tying in these three together, right? Rockefeller goes into the pharmaceutical industry by buying into the German company that experimented on eugenics. Number two, they funded Kinsey's research and his publications. Number three, Rockefeller Foundation funded and supported Planned Parenthood. What's the relation of all three together? One, Rockefeller Foundation had the money and the financial interest to promote contraceptive means, okay? Promote population control and contraception and abortion using an agency called Planned Parenthood, and buying pharmaceutical companies that would produce contraceptive drugs and paraphernalia and abortifacients. But they needed an Alfred Kinsey to do what? To teach people about sexual perversity that would promote promiscuity and with promiscuity being a norm, it will promote sexual adventurism, and then in the guise of protecting people from the effects of their adventurous habits, well, we can sell them all the contraceptive means that will prevent marriages. And if those things fail, then there's the option of abortion. Okay? That's the simple equation, folks. The simple equation. Follow the money. Okay? In order for Rockefeller to make money out of the products of the pharmaceutical industry, he needed he needed a situation where he will promote the need for his products. What were the products? Abortifacients, contraceptives. But if you don't have a market for it, because everybody understands that sexuality is not the way it's supposed to be lived as we do it now, then he'll have no market for it. So he had to have a way to poison the minds of people, corrupt the minds of people, and turn people into perverts, and encourage promiscuity and sexual adventurism, so that he will have people to sell his contraceptives to. Right? That's that's what it is. That is what this is all about. Okay? And in order to come up with his research, well, Kinsey, as already said, used criminals and prostitutes as his population and sample to carry out his fraudulent research. So that, in a nutshell, friends, is what the story is. Now, Planned Parenthood here is not only now, at least, and even then, was not only a provider for contraceptive means and abortion. Ever since in the 1940s, Planned Parenthood already was engaged in educating people. Not educating people really about the real nature of sex and the real nature of sexuality. No, their purpose is to poison the minds of people, not to tell them the truth. Because if they told them the truth about sexuality, again, their contraceptive business and abortion is not going to thrive, right? So they had to poison the minds of people and make them afraid of the consequences of their sexuality, and pile up a lot of negativity about marriage and family and having kids and all the good stuff that nature has provided for couples and families. So they are out to destroy all of these social structures, from personal integrity to marriage to family life and to societies, so that they can make more money. Because if people only know the true nature of sexuality without the perversion that's introduced by Planned Parenthood, nobody is going to subscribe to buying contraceptive means, and no one is going to subscribe to abortion. So they have to get engaged in destroying the notions of people about sex and sexuality, so that they will have clients for their contraceptive means and abortion. Let's read from a research report published by the Claremont Institute, which exposed Planned Parenthood's involvement in the American school system. Okay? The report reveals that Planned Parenthood and its affiliates received 80% of sexual education-related funding from the Department of Health and Human Services. So they got their start from Rockefeller, and now they have managed to convince the US government to fund them. Right? So could you imagine your tax dollars going into the fraudulent affairs of Planned Parenthood? That is why I'm very thankful to President Trump for having defunded Planned Parenthood in this last big, beautiful bill. Okay, and not completely, but to a great extent. Planned Parenthood has lost the funding that comes with Medicaid, right? So that's good. It at least puts a dent into the ability of Planned Parenthood to cause more havoc into our school system. We could spend some time in the next podcast talking more about sex education in particular, but to give a little bit of a preview of it here, let's look at the law that California has, the Comprehensive Sexual Education Law. What does it actually say? It says the goal of CSE, or the Comprehensive Sexual Education, is not to promote abstinence, but instead to encourage safe sex. You see, so right from the get-go, you see a problem there. Okay, you see a problem. Children are not being educated as to the proper place of sex in their lives, which, by nature, should only be exercised within the context of marriage and for the purpose of procreation of children. That is the nature of sex. That's the reason why we have the God-given faculty and ability to procreate and to engender life. That is the purpose of sexuality. But Planned Parenthood and the cohorts would need to poison the way we look at sex. They needed to give it a different meaning, a different context. And the context is simply self-seeking pleasure. That's what they have reduced sexuality to. That this is just your personal ability to satisfy yourself. And therefore, you might as well be safe while doing it. So that's the objective, as they say. The objective is to encourage safe sex. And mind you, they're talking to children here. So meaning, the implication is, children can be, it's okay, it's encouraged for you to have sex, just be safe. And in order to be safe, well, we're going to give you all of the means to protect yourself, from condoms to everything else. Which, by the way, is paid for by U.S. taxpayers. You and me. Okay? And let's continue reading it. So they encourage safe sex by emphasizing contraceptive usage, consent, and a wide variety of sexual exploration. I was just reviewing the curriculum of Teen Talk and Puberty Talk this morning before going on live here. And if you just read through the curriculum, this is exactly what they're doing. They're encouraging sexual exploration. They're not even trying to teach and emphasize the natural way of sex and what it is for and what are the consequences of the natural use of sex. They're encouraging sexual exploration and experimentation and all the deviant behaviors that go with it. That's what's in the curriculum. It is very consistent with what we're reading here from this report. Through the program, the Comprehensive Sexual Education also desensitizes young children to sexual discussion by showing vulgar, graphic, and holding explicit conversations. For example, some sexual behaviors shared by partners, including kissing, touching, talking, caressing, messaging, and oral, vaginal, or anal intercourse. Yeah, that's all described. That's all talked about in these curricular programs. And that's what makes for California's comprehensive sexual education. What good has it done? What good has it done? Well, let's review a few statistics here. I got the statistics, the reports about how effective the safe sex theory of the Comprehensive Sexual Education of California has been. Okay? In other words, this can also be equated to Kinsey's legacy. What's the legacy of Alfred Kinsey? Well, let me tell you what. Of course, this statistics that I was able to obtain is only between the 1960s and 1999. Okay? It looks like they haven't done any further studies beyond this. But from the 1960s, when it first got implemented more widely across the U.S. schools. Up to 1999, they were able to obtain the following statistics. 418% increase in reported forcible rape from 1960 to 1999. And that doesn't even include the rape of children. From 1960 to 1999, we have had 400% increase in out-of-wedlock births. 400% births out of wedlock. How much of that do you think ended in abortion? Each year, we contract 70,000 new cases of syphilis, 650,000 cases of gonorrhea, 64,000 cases of AIDS, 3 million cases of chlamydia, 1 million cases of genital herpes, 5,500,000 cases of human papillomavirus. 67% of our sex abuse victims are now under the age of 18. 34% are under age 12. That has been the legacy of Dr. Alfred Kinsey, Planned Parenthood, and your sex education curricula in schools. Think about that for a moment. So do you think that the sex education curriculum, sex education program in schools have been any good? I mean, you would not be having these kinds of statistics if they were any good, right? Because according to Planned Parenthood, the purpose of sex education programs is to precisely prevent those crimes, prevent those diseases. But on the contrary, they just skyrocketed to percentages that are unimaginable, at least up to about the 1960s. Friends, from 1999 to 2025, I could not even begin to imagine how much worse things have become. And this is all thanks to the sex education curriculum introduced in public schools and in other private schools as well that adopt these programs. So, I would like to appeal to the better sensibilities of the board of Modesto City Schools, and by the way, even the Board of Education of the Stanislaus County, that is also apparently now about to consider these curricular programs for implementation countywide. Please, put a little bit more sense in your heads. Study before you vote. Look into the facts. Study what's before you. You have the opportunity to stop this nonsense, and either provide an alternative program that would really be more suitable to the ages towards which these curricular programs are to be administered, or just stopping it all together. And instead of teaching, instead of having a program for kids, why don't we come up with programs for parents? So that parents, who are supposed to be the primary educators of their children and really the best sex educators for their own children, should be the one to carry out this task in their own families. I can speak from my own experience. I have 7 children. I have 2 boys and 5 girls. And between my wife and myself, we took it upon ourselves to educate our children properly about what sexuality really is all about. Without all the nonsense of the DEI culture, and without the perversity that surrounds our environment nowadays regarding sexuality and things related to it. Parents can teach their own children the truth without it being muddled by ideological leanings or interests that are being rammed down our throats by liberal apologists who are not interested in the truth and who are only interested in pushing a perverse agenda in order to push for their own gain. And I dare say it's really just for their financial gain. And yet they're utilizing our tax dollars to both poison the minds of our children and practically rob us of our tax dollars. We cannot let this stand. We cannot tolerate this to be going on in our communities. And friends, I would like to ask you, let's come together to oppose this new curriculum. And there will be announcements as to when these. Let me see if I have it somewhere. On June 9, the school board of Modesto City Schools would convene and would be discussing the puberty talk curriculum. I would encourage you to be there. On June 9, you can look up all the details on their website. They publish the time of the meeting, and time and place of the meeting, and we can all be there in order to register our opposition to this puberty talk. And stay tuned, because I'm going to prepare in another podcast. I'm going to prepare a podcast that's going to zero in on examining the contents of both teen talk and puberty talk. And that's going to come up in another podcast. I hope I've been able to stir in you a little bit more of concern about what is going on in our school boards, in our classrooms, and I hope that you could join us in the fight. I'll see you again next time. Again, this has been Jake Leonchko on Public Huddle. Have a good day.